So another Gnosis video on Gnosis Untold History of the Bible by Enlightening Channel asserts that Catholics are pursuing a licentious agenda. Something that's been made very clear to me is that the secret societies have a certain structure, and they're gradually bringing people to the understanding of what is going on. And I think that by the time you get to the last level, you'll look around and it'll be too late. There'll be a lot of evil people around. It'll be a world of almost completely secret society people, and everyone else will be screened out. So like I've always said, the Jews and the whites are vying for power, but ultimately there is one group of people that rules all the movements, the Illuminati, if you will. What this documentary would have you believe is that the Jesuits are responsible for a lot, and most of the subversion and the infiltration and the secret governments going on. But it's very obvious, just like in World War II, that there's people playing both sides, and there's people passionately committed to one side or another. Just like the Nazis fighting the communists, fighting America at the same time. So America had sided with the communists, and they turned around, and now America doesn't like Russia, and it's been this way for a long time. There's people playing both sides the whole time. There's people temporarily playing one side, then going to another. There's people playing both sides simultaneously. And ultimately, the people who are the most rich and powerful are the ones who play both sides. With that in mind, there was admonitions by the Pope against the Protestants before they persecuted them, and they killed a lot, perhaps over time, upwards of 1 million Protestants were killed in inquisitions. And so the tendacious agenda and philosophies of the Catholics had them compared to Satanists and the sons of perdition. They were called perfidious, which is deceitful and untrustworthy. The precepts of the Catholic Church were different than the precepts of Jesus. They pursued certain groups of people. Bloody Mary, when she killed her own sister-in-law, or sister, one of the two, she brought about a Catholic restoration. Martin Luther admitted he was not the first one to protest the Catholic Church. These are all notes. I just want to make sure I get through them and then give you my synopsis, if you will, and wrap it up. The Pope Innocent said that Pope holdeth the place on earth not only of a man, but of the true God. And he fathered the Inquisition. Ignatius Loyola of Spain is the founder of the Jesuits, and one of the founders was a man named Xavier, and his castle was later taken over, one way or another, by the Jesuit order. And it very much so reminds me of Professor X of X-Men. And if you're watching the X-Men movies, there's a point where Magneto and Professor X were friends, and then in the future they're friends again, and that goes to show you how they show you their agenda, and they show you what's going on. There's two distinct sides, either like secret groups who are battling for the fate of the world, but in the end they come together. A dialectical, the Hegelian dialectic, if you will, the synthesis. So moving on, the Jesuits are known for spying, infiltration, assassination, revolution. But they, looking into it myself independently, I've seen that some Jesuits during World War II, because they put the Jesuits on the side of the Catholics, obviously, for obvious reasons. They put Hitler on the side of the Catholics for a slightly less obvious reason, but it makes enough sense. But there was a lot of Jesuits put in camps in World War II There was a Jesuit college that was used as a base to go against Hitler. Jesuits helped Jews escape. So it's not as simple as you would think it is. There's some things that go against what is generally going on. So there's a lot of quotes talking about the Jesuits all through history. If you look at the Freemasons, a lot of Catholics, at one point there was a Catholic decree saying Catholics can't be Masons. It's a Protestant movement for the most part. And so, these secret societies themselves are compartmentalized, and it goes back to the top, Pretty much from the beginning, I've described the Illuminati as a secret society that controls the masses of secret societies who are part of this New World Order agenda. And this guy, Guy Fawkes, was actually, pretty much the guy who Anonymous is based on, and you have a lot of, protesters taking on his mask and that movement. He was a Jesuit agitator, not a priest, who planted gunpowder under Parliament, hoping to blow up King James and the government of England. Okay, and he was a professional mercenary. And he was caught at the last second before he could do it. And later on, believe it was a year later, the King James Bible came out, and the people who wrote this, they're very much for the King James Bible, just like Masons are. Gnosticism and Masonry pretty much go hand in hand. The Tribunal of the Holy Office of the Inquisition, commonly known as the Spanish Inquisition, was established in 1478 by Catholic monarchs Ferdinand II of Aragon and Isabella I of Castile. Why do I bring this up, you might ask? Well, around the same time, Masonry forms, and then later on, let me read this real quick. The Rothschild family is a family descended from Meyer Amschel Rothschild, a court Jew to the German Landgraves of Hesse-Kassel in the free city of Frankfurt, who established his banking business in the 1760s. Unlike most previous court Jews, Rothschild managed to bequeath his wealth and establish an international banking family through his 5 sons. So, it is sort of complicated what is going on. There's a lot of infiltration. There's a lot of, you really got to look at the timeline to truly put together what is going on and come to the conclusions I have. Masonry can be viewed as an alliance of Jews and Protestants against the Catholic Church. This is why the Masons who founded America and their allies wanted to separate church and state, but it was all part of a long-term plan to bring in world government, to bring in all the things I've been talking about in all my videos. I want to wrap this up pretty soon. So the Jesuits are playing many sides, and infiltrations are part of their tactics, as well as the Jews. But also, ultimately, what you're really looking at is Satanists from all sides infiltrating all churches and movements. Nobody's safe, including Muslims. Everything I've been saying the whole time hasn't been disproven at all. You get a lot of one-sidedness from both sides. You'll hear the Catholics telling their story. I've read documentaries where beautifully, explained by Catholics, and I've seen the Protestants and the Gnostics and the Jews explain their part, and how they talk about that there's a movement in Europe where, I forgot the name, I'll put it in the comments if I care that much, a movement where they claim that these white people, the Aryans, are the real Jews, and that they talk about how some of the royal family is related to Hitler, and how someone in the royal family came out and said that one of their relatives was the son of Hitler or something like this. And so, and that would definitely explain why Hitler wept when he bombed the UK, and why he, I believe it was Dunkirk. I'll correct in the comments if I'm wrong, but some battle where he let all these English guys escape. I believe it was across the English Channel or something, escape across some body of water. So, It's quite interesting how this works and how these people are compartmentalized beyond any doubt. These secret societies, they don't see it this way. I can't stress that enough. You know, if you talk to these people in these secret societies, they really believe one way. They really believe what they're pushing almost every time. It goes back to the higher ups truly know what's going on. They might suspect something like that is going on, but they're living their life, and they're truly, what they believe is that they're at war with another group of people. These white guys, these secret societies, neo-Nazis associated, the guys on the right who are more associated with the Catholics and these type of people, the Jesuits and the Nazis. They really believe that they're trying to do what's in their best interest. And these guys on the left who are more associated with the Protestants, and you got to really truly understand what is going on here. It's when you look at who were in the Masonic lodges, it was the Satanists, the witches, the deists, the pagans, the Protestants, all these people who were at odds with the church. The Jews. The Jews were some of the main ones orchestrating it. So it's quite interesting how this breaks down. There's a lot of things that will confuse you, but you have to keep looking at it as compartmentalization. It's like the left and the right, the left-right paradigm, and this is the secret society left-right paradigm, if you will. And it's also why secret societies control political movements that are on their side. These Nazis are controlled by secret societies. The right wing controlled by secret societies, and their hierarchy is really answering to the hierarchy that controls the whole thing. It's quite interesting. If you look at the mafia being Catholic, and they talk about the mafia and the government as two sides of the same coin. If you think about the deeper meaning of that, it's like saying that the Masons and the Jesuits are two sides of the same coin. Because who are the mafia guys? They're a bunch of Jesuit-loving, Catholic, secret society guys. And Italy sided with not Germany in World War II at one point. Then they switched sides. It goes back to what I said earlier. Sometimes these guys play one side, then the other. And sometimes they play both sides at the same time. And then, of course, Lucky Luciano helped negotiate the surrender of Italy in World War II. He helped guard the docks in America. You truly look at how this all breaks down, Yes, there is animosity between the two sides, but it's more complicated than that. And I don't think it's fair to say that the Rothschilds family have always ruled. I think the people who talk about Babylonian families having ruled this, having infiltrated the royal families, are a little bit closer to what's going on. I think to put it simply, what is going on, it is rich white families and rich Jewish families who have come together, and they have a kind of alliance, and they have compartmentalized everybody in many, many different ways: gangs, sports teams, political movements, religions, in many, many ways. And it's just one big game to them, a game of death, a game of making a killing, and it's wow, it's wow. Part of this, what makes it very confusing and makes it hard for you to say this to a lot of people, is that there's people in every movement you can imagine who take it dead fucking serious. They take it extremely seriously. And I don't think it's fair to say that these people came up with religion. I think it's fair to say that these people took over religions. I don't think these people came up with anything. Frankly, I think they just took over everything and they used it as a means of control. But I'm out of time now. Thank you.